he didn't. I love it when the readings in the office do like they do today, sort of compare and contrast each other, mesh each other. They're not always intended to do that. Some days they are. Sometimes they just happen that way. But today we see two pictures of the one we call St. Peter. The early picture when he's still a very young man, still serving as an apostle or disciple of Jesus, because Jesus is still in the picture, walking the earth with them. Impetuous, zealous, full of fire, and seemingly unstoppable. At least the mouth is sometimes, seems like. But that's not being fair. He was very bold and very courageous and very sincere. No doubt about that. There's not an ounce of insincerity in him. Then we see the aged Peter. The Peter who's just about, as he says, prepared for his departure from this earthly tent. This Peter we get a different picture of. He's more sober. He's more stable. And he's more reliable, you could say. The Peter in the gospel reading was one that when he stood the challenge or was challenged and tested, he fell away. No, I don't know him. Even swearing to try to add emphasis to his declamation. And then the Peter of his epistle, very soon he will, as Jesus promised him he would, be led somewhere where he did not want to go. They tried to do that in the gospel reading. Put Peter in the same lump with Jesus. He didn't want to go there, and he backed away. And Jesus told him a few weeks later, there'll come a time when you're older, somebody will lead you where you don't want to go, and you will go. And the Peter of the second reading was that Peter, just about ready to do that, just about the time. But you see someone more settled, someone more at ease, someone, even though he still had the zeal, still had the fire, still had the power, he had something that the first Peter didn't have, which was experience. He talks about how I'm an eyewitness of His majesty. I've seen the majestic glory, and I've heard the voice of the majestic glory. And it's sometimes easy to see that. Okay, that's what happened. Peter had this revelation, this manifestation experience. What Deacon Gary calls in the koinonos that's coming out, an epiphany experience, a wow experience. And we think it's because of that. That's what changed Peter. From the impetuous one to the solid, sober, stable one. But remember, the Peter that denied Jesus 3 times had already seen Jesus on the Mount of Transfiguration. Several months before. He'd already heard the voice say, "You are my beloved Son, and you I'm well pleased." He'd already heard the voice of the majestic glory. He'd already seen the glory on the holy mountain. It wasn't like this was a buying experience that happened to him, and that's what made him this stronger person. No, he'd already had that revelation. He'd already had that vision. And it was the Peter who had experienced the majestic glory, the Peter who had been an eyewitness of His majesty, that said, "I don't know the guy. I don't know what you're talking about." So that kind of burst our bubble about how these things come about. Because yes, God does give us wow experiences. He does give us born-again experiences, new birth experiences, and they're real. But they don't automatically change us into what God wants us to be. Those experiences happen, and it takes the rest of our lives to process them, to analyze them, and to learn to live them out. Peter's an obvious example. After he received the revelation, and after he had been the eyewitness of things, after he'd walked with Jesus for 3.5 years, he was still the one who said, "I don't know him." He wasn't the Peter that we see here in his epistle. The Peter who says, "We have the prophetic word made more sure." But the prophetic word is not made sure by these buying revelation moments, these epiphany moments. those aren't what make the prophetic word more sure. What makes the prophetic word more sure is those things as we live them out and work them out, and they dwell in us day after day, honing and purging and sanding away, refining. Those moments do it, but they're not as quick as that. The moments may take a few seconds in time, but they take a lifetime to work out. The Peter we see in the second reading is what we were told this weekend was a veteran Peter. But when you say that, and we're pretty much veterans in here. But again, that's not a bad thing. Because it's the veterans who've taken the wow moments and learned to live them out, and learned to let them apply. And so when it comes time for somebody to lead us where we don't want to go, we're more able to do it. Because time and patience and perseverance and the slow, steady hand of Almighty God has brought us from the young, impetuous to the veteran. That's why in Isaiah it talks about how unto us a child is born, unto us a son is given. There's 3 places in Isaiah that talks about the Messiah coming to us as a child. First one, of course, is in chapter 7. Behold, a virgin shall conceive and bear a son. Call his name Emmanuel. That's the first time he mentions the child coming as the Messiah. And after chapter 7, there's chapter 9, which we read this morning, where it says, unto us a child is born, unto us a son is given. The government shall be upon his shoulder. Name shall be called Wonderful, Counselor, Mighty God, Everlasting Father. So in addition to the name Emmanuel, God with us, that's how we know it's a divine entity and not just a regular flesh and blood person. But that divine element is there. Then Isaiah ties it in together in chapter 9 with a further revelation of who he is. Someone who will take control of the government of the kingdoms of the world and of the heavenlies even. Then there's a third one in chapter 11 where he talks about all the different things, the manifestations of the peace of God's kingdom. Then he says, a little child shall lead them. We sometimes think that's just a generic situation, meaning the youth shall lead. The kids are in charge. But that also is talking about the Christ. Because actually the article there is not the indefinite article. It doesn't say a child. It says the. In the original Hebrew, the child. It's not just talking about any child. It's talking about the child he's already talked about 2 times before. In chapter 7 and 9. The child, and many translations use a capital C. The child shall lead them. It's talking about Jesus. And what it shows us is, we sometimes take this to mean, okay, like I said, the youth lead, the children take over things. Forget the old guys. No, you need the veterans. You need the veterans who have had time to work out their manifestation experiences, who've had time to work out their wow experiences, who've had time to submit themselves to the hand of Almighty God, who stood the test of time, who stood the fire, who stood the trials. You need the veterans too. Yes, the youth are important. Yes, they have their role in leadership because we need their zeal. We need their fire. We need that Peter from the early days, for sure. But you can never ever do without the Peter who wrote the epistles. You can never ever do without the veterans because they also have their place. They also have their voice. They also have the ability to say, make sure you pay attention to that lamp shining in a dark place. Be patient till the day dawns and the morning star rises in your hearts. Those aren't the words that you can speak. It takes veterans to speak words like that. Veterans who have gone through the fire, gone through the trials. And so, just a reminder this morning that nothing is lost in the Lord. Nothing is wasted in the Lord. And everyone He has in His kingdom is there to be utilized, there to be used. What a shame to have a treasure and put it on the shelf and say, that time's done. What a shame to have a treasure who's raring to get into the fight and say, no, it's not your time yet. Because it's time for both. It's time for the Peter of the gospel, and it's time for the Peter of the epistle. Because in the place where the Lord is bringing us, we need both. We need the zeal, We need the fire. We need the experience and the wisdom and the training. We need every bit of it. And so I thank God that He shows us in His Word, in His Scriptures, how there's a place for all of it in His kingdom. There's a need for all of it in His kingdom. The veteran and the rookie. The newbie and the experienced. So let's never forget, God calls both. God creates both. God prepares both. And let's be faithful to listen to both as God uses them in His kingdom. Stand.